What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. So the SNP leader Ian Blackford was called out on the Politics Live show by the Tory MP Bernard Jenkins, who absolutely ripped apart his idea of Scottish independence and how ridiculous the SNP stance against no deal is, considering if they got independence, surely no deal would have to be an option for them. Obviously. But then again, thinking about it, technically not, since they just want to leave the UK and join the EU, so they don't even want independence. Oh, and Ian also claims that the UK does not have a single market. So let's see what the Express had to say about it, and a short clip from the Politics Live show itself. The article headlines, No Deal Brexit Plan Backfires as Blackford Sees Independent Stream's Flaws Exposed. SNP Westminster leader Ian Blackford saw his arguments against a no-deal Brexit backfire as Brexiteer MP Bernard Jenkins pointed out some inconsistencies in his plan to stay in the European Union until an agreement is reached. The SNP MP insisted his party will not agree to any Brexit proposal put forward by Boris Johnson, as his arrangements would not take a no-deal scenario off the table. The Prime Minister has been engaged in a battle of will with Parliament to have the agreement he struck with the European Union pass the scrutiny of MPs. But Ian Blackford was left squirming as Brexiteer MP Bernard Jenkins exposed a major inconsistency in his Brexit concerns, which also undermine his dreams for Scottish independence. After listening to the SNP MP express his fears of a no deal, Mr Jenkins said, "Can we take it that if ever Scotland voted to leave the United Kingdom, the SNP would never agree to leave the UK without the British government having chosen to give Scotland a deal? So without a deal, Scotland would remain in the United Kingdom indefinitely. Is that right?" As Mr Blackford attempted to bypass the question, the Tory MP hit back. "It's the same, isn't it? If you left the United Kingdom, answer the question." Well, of course it's the same, Bernard. We all know this. A few people have pointed it out and I've said it myself, especially during my live streams. And along with, of course, the border issue. Like, how are you going to do that, especially if it's a no-deal Brexit? Because why would the British government give you a deal when you got shitweasels like Ian Blackford there? Now, instead of continuing to read what was said, let's just check it out and watch the actual short clip that accompanies this article.
But just to be clear, Ian, if I could with you, for some people that would be enough. So if the EU said, right, the UK stays a member until January the 31st, some people say, right, that's it, no deal can't happen until after election. Other people talk about other forms of no deal coming off the table. We need a guarantee that if we don't get successful trade talks, we can't go on to what are called WTO or World Trade Organization terms in 2020. What's the SNP's definition of no deal coming off the table?
Well, what we're talking about is in the short term, so that we can't crash out on the 31st of October, that we remove that. I think it's quite pertinent to talk about some of the risks that are there, because people talk about, Boris Johnson talks about his deal. It's not his deal. This is about leaving the EU and then going into a situation that we discussed the longer term. And as I pointed out in the House of Commons this week, everyone has to be aware that there is that threat of no deal, and it's, I have to say, it's quite ridiculous that Boris Johnson and the government can say that they can conclude trade talks in a matter of months. The European Union tends to take years over these things. And as things stand at the moment, if Boris Johnson's proposition went through, and I hope strongly it doesn't, that we leave the European Union and then we're in transition, but only till the end of 2020. So that threat of no deal doesn't get removed. Now, what I would say to the opposition parties, I think collectively that we've all got a responsibility to explain this to people and say why it's important that we eject this government from office.
Bernard Jenkins, very keen to get in.
Well, I just want to ask a question. Can we take it then that if ever Scotland voted to leave the United Kingdom, the SNP would never agree to leave the United Kingdom until the British government had chosen to give Scotland a deal? So without a deal, Scotland would remain in the United Kingdom indefinitely. Is that right?
That's frankly ridiculous.
Well, it's the same, isn't it?
Because
if you left the United Kingdom,
no, you're being obtuse. Because what we will do is we will have a white paper, we'll have a plan, and we'll be prepared to go into negotiations.
So you'd leave
when
without
that
a deal?
happens, and of course we'll be staying in the European Union. No, that's not what we're talking about, because you are being ridiculous, because what you're talking about is the single market and the customs union, and the UK doesn't have a direct counterpart to that. So let's be realistic rather than infantile, if you don't mind.
We have a single market in the United Kingdom.
If you don't mind, I'm trying to respond to the questions which were already asked. But
just let me pick up to Bernard Jenkins' point there. The point he's making, though, is if you choose to depart a club, a union, a country, call it what you will, is it up to the person leaving to say when they leave, or is it up to the other lot as well? That is, in essence, I think, what Bernard Jenkins is asking you.
But the reason that we're in this trouble is because the UK government has had red lines all over the place and wouldn't get down to serious negotiations. We've said all along, right since the beginning of this process, that a way of dealing with the Northern Ireland situation, for example, is staying in the single market and the customs union. And the UK was never realistic about that. And that's what's created the problems that we've now got.
So you see in that clip there, the Tory MP is absolutely loving watching Ian Blackford squirm like a rat in his seat. It is unbelievable. If only he was in the studio with him, that would have been so much better, just to have him sitting there as well. Luckily for Ian Blackford though, he was up in Scotland in a studio, so we don't get to see him squirm in person. I mean, just look at his forehead, you can see he's sweating a little bit there. The Tory MP has got his pulse racing, because everything the Tory MP says is right. If the UK choose to give you a deal, it's an if. At the end of the day, the same way we're dealing with the EU for some reason, because these MPs believe that you need a deal to leave, when actually no, you should just leave. It shouldn't be up to the union that you're leaving, it should be up to you how you leave. You dictate the terms of your freedom, surely. Which just goes to show that the SNP don't even know what the meaning of freedom is. Because I can tell you something, these idiots don't know about freedom. Ian Blackford is definitely not the next William Wallace, that's for sure. Now, I'm not going to reread through what was just said in that interview, as we already know. You all just heard and see it for yourselves. But what you didn't see is the SNP MP also urged opposition parties to come together to bring down the government with a vote of no confidence to move to a quick election. But Boris Johnson on Thursday announced his plans to table a motion under the Fixed Term Parliament Act to trigger an election on December 12th. The Prime Minister said MPs would receive the extra time they clamoured for to scrutinise his Brexit bill if Parliament agreed to heed his call for a vote. Mr Johnson told the BBC the way to get this done, the way to get Brexit done, is to be reasonable with Parliament and say, if they generally want more time to study this excellent deal, excellent, I don't know about that. It's excellent that you managed to get a deal out of the EU. The terms of the deal, I wouldn't call them excellent, no. Well done for getting a deal. It's not a good deal, though. Let's be honest. They can have it, but they have to agree to a general election on December 12th. That's the way forward, because this Parliament has been going on for a long time. With a majority, it's refusing to deliver Brexit. Mr Johnson continued, what we've decided is that we have a way forward for this country and for the EU. We've got a great deal on Brexit for the first time in 3.5 years. This Parliament has voted to endorse a way out. Unfortunately, they have also voted to delay the final approval of that deal they endorsed. What that means, I'm afraid, is if this Parliament is anything to go by, that delay could go on for a very long time. It looks as if our EU friends are going to respond to Parliament's request by having an extension, which I really don't want. It is understood the SNP, who have 35 MPs in the House of Commons, want to get the chance to oust the Prime Minister from Downing Street, but will not back an election without the support of the Labour Party. Following the meeting in Westminster, a Labour MP told The Sun Nicola Sturgeon and Ian Blackford saw Jeremy and asked for his support to jump with them. I don't believe he gave them an answer. Of course he didn't. Corbyn's running scared from an election, like he always does. But I'll tell you something, Ian Blackford saying that the UK does not have a single market has to be one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my life. Of course we have a single market. So next he'll be telling us that the EU doesn't have a single market or a customs union, even though he said it there. It was a bit like his million jobs or 10,000 jobs or whatever it was, and then later that day it changed. That was on the Politics Live show and then Newsnight actually, if I remember correctly. Something like 1 million jobs lost, then it was 100,000 jobs lost, then it was 10,000 jobs lost or something like that. I can't remember, it was months ago now. But it was an absolute joke. I think he won Shitweasel of the Week for it, to be honest with you. Maybe, I'll tell you what, we'll give it to him. There we go, guys. Ian Blackford is Shitweasel of the Week. I have decided upon it. This guy deserves it. Just for being called out by Bernard Jenkins over his completely flawed independence plans. Because obviously, how are you leaving this non-existent single market without a deal, hey? Hopefully our government won't give you a deal at the time. Hopefully we'll delay and stall and offer you terrible terms just so you stay in the union. You know, like you want us to do with the EU, mate. But hopefully everyone in Scotland wisens up to the SNP's nonsense and they don't get elected this time. It would be lovely to see these people out on their ear, much like the Labour Party and the Lib Dems, who I will be doing a video on shortly, guys, so stay tuned for that. But I'm going to end that video there anyway. I want to thank the channel's PayPal, Patreon and Subscribe-Star members for supporting the channel, along with everyone who watches my videos. Remember to let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Leave a like, subscribe with the notification bell and share this video as it helps the channel a lot. and I will see you all in the next one.
This Parliament is a dead Parliament. It should no longer sit. It has no moral right to sit on these green benches. They don't like the truth. Twice they have been asked to let the electorate decide upon whether they should continue to sit in their seats, while they block 17.4 million people's votes. This Parliament is a disgrace. But they're too cowardly to give it a go. But the time is coming. The time is coming, Mr. Speaker, when even these turkeys won't be able to prevent Christmas.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.